Good. Just
Yeah.
they getting started now. You
Getting
know.
your day started. Yep. That's right.
Yeah,
I like that you have
yeah,
like the work schedule of a vampire.
yeah. I do, man. I'll be sleeping. I'll get up before noon usually, and I'm working all night till the sun come up. But it's all right.
Imagine coming back to the East Coast now.
Uh,
Get up at like
I'm
3
not
p.m.
trying
and
to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You guys in? Where you guys at now?
I'm in Florida and
Oh,
he's in
okay.
Charlotte, North Carolina. I like how
Okay.
I just say Florida. The whole fucking state of Florida. I'm in Florida.
The whole state. I like it.
The whole state.
Yeah, and
It's been a while. I haven't
I had to
seen.
get out of the Northeast and get out of the cold and come down to Carolina here, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I feel you.
When
I can't deal with
when
the
did you
cold
send
no
it out to California?
more. It was January 2019. It's almost 2 years.
That's right. Okay. And okay, so well, we've been obviously you weren't with us before. We've been talking here for a little bit, and I've been kind of prefacing, who you are. And what
Mm.
I said was, I think that it's. I'm very comfortable saying that you are a top. You're an engineer who's in the top 1% of their field. Would you agree with that? Like, I mean, think about it. Break it down, because I mean, and I was given a list here just on your Instagram. I saw like you had posted a couple pictures of like, who I've worked with recently. And there was like ASAP Rocky, Hunter Hayes, like, for Kyle, like the super duper Kyle, like lots of artists. So
Yeah.
what I wanted to do was just give you a chance to kind of tell us like a little bit about you and what it is you do and where you do it. So that I think so we can help our audience kind of understand, what makes a good engineer. Why is it worth paying for a good one? And I kind of gave my take from the musician side, where I thought it's better to have, 5 or 7 amazing sounding songs than to have 15 okay ones. And I'm talking a lot, so let's give the floor to you. And yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you definitely. Like quality over quantity for sure. At the same time, I think depending on the artist, sometimes it's their process just to like bang out songs after song after song and see which one hits. But they're not always the best that way. But but yeah, as an engineer, I mean, so yeah, I've been out here almost 2 years in LA. It was a little bit of a hard start, making a move from Boston after being very comfortable there and making decent money, engineering. But I wanted to progress a little more, and felt like I was hitting the ceiling in Boston. So I had to come out here and just kind of take a backward step to move forward a little bit. And so yeah, it was a little you know rough start at first, but made it through. And yeah, I got hired at Atlantic and Warner, and that just like opened doors for everything. I met a lot of artists, a lot of A&Rs, a lot of producers, and yeah, it kind of just moved on to being able to mix a lot of great records. And yeah, so I guess as an engineer though, as a mixer at least, I've learned a lot over the years and to get to where I'm at. And I think the best thing I've learned is when to use specific techniques or whatever. You don't always need to throw everything at the song, every little trick up your sleeve. I think an experienced engineer knows when to use this or when to not use this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean,
Well,
kind of that.
I think that's a really key point, because we were talking to a producer the other day, and they made a great point about like very similar. Some producers want to throw the kitchen sink at a beat to show, look at everything I can do. And I think some producers and maybe some engineers in the same way kind of lose sight that it's, whether you like it or not, it's about the artist. And
Yeah.
like you've got to make the artist shine.
Mhm.
Now, are there times where, what is it like for you when an artist is dead set on wanting to do something that just like isn't the right thing to do? And like, at what point do you just kind of say, all right, if that's what you want, sure, here you go, boop, boop. Or do you kind of just try to be like, hey, you know, maybe do this, or are you there to be like, all right,
Yeah.
if that's what you want, boom.
Yeah. I mean, I try and let them know if there's a better way to do it, and even giving them some options. Sometimes there's just no way getting around it, and you gotta do what they want. Luckily, you know, I think as you start working with higher caliber artists, or at least like when you work with them more frequently and you build a relationship with them, they begin to trust you. And even though they might not agree with it, at least they'll sit there and listen to it, listen to your idea. And sometimes you just gotta like trick them and do
Now,
something.
yeah, right. A little psychology and like a little
Yeah, for
magic
sure. I
trick on
definitely
them.
feel like a psychologist in the studio sometimes, and you know, give them something they think it's the same, or I don't know. It can be tricky, so it kind of depends on the situation.
So it's almost like a little Jedi mind trick of like Inception. Make them think that they thought of
Yeah,
it, and you're like, yes, that's right. No
yeah,
echo there.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's
So,
interesting, like trying to working with different artists and the A&Rs and the producers, because they all want their say in it. So like
mhm.
knowing just when to like, or, you know, not come at them directly with your idea. Sometimes kind of come at them sideways. You know, when you know it's going to be better this way. Just give them the options. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, and you said something so key is like the relationship with the person, like client number one
Yeah.
and client number two. Client number one, you might be able to say, hey, dude, you're being an idiot. Let's do it this way. Client number two, you might need to caress a lot more.
Yeah.
So when you are meeting somebody new or like starting to work with a new artist or producer or whatever, how quickly can you tell if there is going to be a good fit, or how quickly is it where you're like, oh, this is going to feel like a job today?
um, Usually once you get started, yeah. At least for me, I can tell. You know, just because I've been doing it for a while, so you know, I can kind of tell. Like I'm very confident in my skills, so that's not going to get in the way of our relationship. You know, as an engineer artist. So it's really just more of a vibe thing. And you know, some people are just easier to work with. Some people really want to know or really want things to be their way. And I mean, I think that's another skill as an engineer is when you can see that. You know, so sometimes I feel like I can go in and, you know, especially on recording sessions, and I can give a lot of feedback and almost be a producer on the song and really like guide them through things. And sometimes you gotta know when to shut the fuck up and chill and let them do their own thing. And sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. And that really just comes with experience and kind of being able to read people a little bit and read the situation. But ultimately, you know, I'm trying to set the best vibe for the artist. So if that means I'm very interactive and working with them, cool. If that means I'm just sitting there running Pro Tools and just operating, you know, that's cool too. So it's a customer service industry as an engineer. So it's really about the artist and, you know, best way to get the right vibe or the right vibe for the song. So however that is to do it, you got to do it that way.
Yeah. Understand what they need. Maybe
Yeah,
anticipate their
exactly.
needs before them.
For
We
sure.
work with a lot of up and coming artists, obviously, who aren't signed to labels and don't have all the tools like you have.
Mhm.
When would you say is a good time? When does someone need to think about hiring someone in your role?
I mean, a good engineer is definitely gonna help your song. You know, sonic wise, it'll kind of. I feel like it'll make the difference between an amateur sounding album and a pro sounding album. With that being said, you know, we nowadays we have the tools. You can do stuff at home. So you know, if you have a good ear and you know how to kind of tweak things the right way, like you know, you can absolutely do it yourself. Um, the other side of that, I feel like, and I've told artists this for years, you know, you as the artist, you've been living with this beat and writing vocals to it for, I don't know, a week, a month, 2 months, 6 months, however long. So you have a very like intimate relationship with this song. Me as the engineer, I'm coming in and probably never heard this before. So I can kind of take an outside look at the overall song and get a whole different perspective from it. And think of ideas possibly that you wouldn't have thought of because you've been living with this for so long. And, it's fresh to me. And even songs that I've recorded and then also have to mix, I try and leave a lot of space in between the recording and the mixing if that's possible, because I don't want to get too stuck in the song. The more I hear it, the more used to it I am. Because that first listen is always, you come up with all these ideas and you don't want to lose that. So you got to try and separate that. So that can be a little tricky. I think I'm going off topic, but with the question, but yeah, no, I think having an engineer can be very helpful, for mixing and for recording. I mean, even for recording, like if you know how to record yourself, that's great, and save the money for sure. But you're also doing two jobs at once, and you can't necessarily always focus on the performance of your music. So sometimes even hiring an engineer, just so that you can be creative and not have to think of any technical stuff, is very helpful.
Well, I think you're totally right. And I think, so from the musician perspective, back in the day when before you and I started working together back in Boston, like I had a home studio and I was like, I considered myself an okay engineer, like until I met you. But so like, I was like in the business side of like my musician head, I was like, well, you know what? In the long run, it will probably benefit me more if I can like build a home studio, have some equipment, and learn how to do this on my own. And to a point, that was correct. But you mentioned something important, and what I didn't equate in my math, because I was only thinking dollars. I wasn't equating for time. And I might have spent 1 hour writing the song, hypothetically, and then maybe an hour recording it. But then I would spend 6, 8, 10 hours on mixing it down because, one, I'm the musician. I'm not an expert mixer, so I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. And I'm like, it can always be better. I don't know when this is done. So in my head, the reason because you and I worked together on something like 20 songs, I bet. And the reason I kept paying for a top tier engineer was not only was my product so much better, but I saved 6 hours per song. And if I value my time at X dollars, even $20 an hour, which would be like, if you're making decent money, $20 an hour isn't a lot. It's not nothing, but so if I value my time at $20 an hour and it takes me 6 hours to do like the mix, it's well worth, and I can only do it to a C+ level. It's way worth paying you like the 200 to get an A+ and save 6 hours. Cause maybe in that 6 hours, I could have written 2 more songs.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. Like, on the short run, you can save a lot of money by recording at home and all that. But like you said, I mean, even me as a mixer, like, I get to times where I'm like, I don't know, I can do more. But I also, with the experience, I've learned when, like, okay, this is where it needs to be. Like, adding more is just, you're fighting against yourself, at a certain point.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. It saves time and all that, and money.
Well, and I think just, yeah, it definitely is. And having the team, like, and also the networking, like now here we are, like, so yeah. Like, and one of the things I had a question for you was, once you went to LA and you went to Atlantic, and you start working with bigger artists who probably have like a system in place already. So like sometimes like there might be like, and like NLE Choppa, I don't even know if I'm saying that name right.
Yeah,
but like,
right.
So are there times where you are kind of just given a project on Pro Tools and someone says, hey, can you mix this? Like, are there big records or just good songs that you've been like, how many artists have you worked for that wouldn't know you? Like if they were, on the bus, like, oh, that's the guy who mixed my song, like, is there a lot of that? Or are you
Oh
always
yeah,
kind of working with the artist? Can you elaborate a little bit on the differences of the
yeah, absolutely,
relationships?
absolutely. As a mixer, like if you're just a freelance mixer, you are rarely meeting the artist. Choppa, I've been lucky to record him as well as mix him, so we built a very good relationship. And you know, so we actually know each other, obviously. But yeah, a lot of the ASAP Rocky stuff I did, never met him. What else? Hunter Hayes, never met him. Did some stuff for LA Due, never met her. I even hit her up on IG one time, like, oh, I love working on your stuff. Never even heard back. She's like, who the fuck are you?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't know. Like, yeah, so so yeah, you're really just hired as a mixer, and you might have a little bit of interaction with them, and if they're in town. I mean, that's the other thing is like they might be on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, so
Right.
you and especially with the major label stuff, you're not really dealing with the artists. You're dealing more with the A&Rs,
Yeah,
sometimes the
the team.
producers. Yeah. So they have people. The artist doesn't care. They just listen to it and want to, you know, want to hear if it sounds if it sounds good or not.
Now, do you prefer it one way or the other? I guess in some ways it might be nice to just kind of be like, hey, here, okay, I don't need to hear anything. I can sit and do this on my own time, and mix and master it. Here you go, done. I only have to deal with one person. Or do you prefer kind of being really in the mix and really having your hands, like, when the hands on the project when they're making it?
Um, Kind of both. I mean, back when we used to work together in Boston, I used to, mix everything right there on the spot, and
Yep.
uh, that I feel like that forced me to move a little faster on the mix, which pros and cons to that. Now, since I'm sitting in my own studio mixing somebody's stuff without them here, I have a lot more free time, or not free
Mm.
time, but I have a lot more time to just spend as much time as I need on it. And there's the pros and cons with that as well. Obviously, you don't want to take too long, but I can also spend the time needed and not under these time constraints. Um, when I first moved out here, I was just mixing. I hadn't done any recording sessions, or very few, and I started to miss being in the studio with the artists and being part of that creative process, and just felt antisocial, just stuck in my studio by myself all the time. So yeah, I kind of like both. But yeah, when it comes to mixing, I do, at least the beginning of the mix, I like to do on my own, because there's a lot of like cleanup stuff that might need to be done, things that I just don't need the artist there for. I'm just trying to like get the 808 to sit right, and they're like, why do the vocals not sound right? I haven't even gotten to that yet. So yeah, sometimes it's more beneficial not to have the artist there, at least for part of it. And that's how I work with Chop. I record them. I do a rough mix, right there on the spot. Once it's ready to be mixed, I get all the stems, and then I spend time, a few hours usually, working on the song, before he even takes a listen. Send out a couple versions. He might give me some notes, and then sometimes he'll stop in the studio just to sit down with me and tweak a few things. So yeah, it's kind of good both ways, with them or without them.
Now, when it comes to you getting paid, are you usually paid up front, or do you take a percentage? Does it depend on what you're doing for the song? Some producers I know take upfront payment and percentage of 15, 20, 25%. What is a normal engineer's payment like for an artist?
For indie artists, that I still work with a bunch of indie artists. Unless I've built a relationship with them already, I do try and get a deposit, and at least get some of it up front. Especially like people hit me up on IG still, and for mixes, like people I don't know, so just gotta it can be risky. But the label stuff, that's all like legit. So basically, you get the mixes, send them out. When you're done, do any updates that you need to, and then invoice them for it. And that could take some time to get paid for, but they pay you. So, and then yeah, it varies. Obviously, I can charge a lot more to the labels because they got a lot more money, and charge a little less to indie artists, you know,
Yeah.
trying to help people out. And, you know, there's a lot of good music, a lot of good artists that aren't signed to a major label and don't have that backing, that budget to pay, you know, a higher mix rate. But yeah, definitely gets up there when you're with the labels. So, and then there's levels to that, you know, the big mixers that are out here charge thousands of dollars per mix and do like thousands of dollars per mix, you know, do them few a day, have, you know, assistants working for them. And so yeah, it's definitely a lot of levels to
it. In terms of like your business, like your personal business, do you have kind of like a vision of what you want? Do you want to kind of be like that kind of guy who has assistants? Kind of like, do you want to have your own company and own like recording house? Or are you like pumped to be where you're at and be an integral part of what's going on at this record label?
I mean, so I don't just work for Atlantic. As a mixer, I'm technically freelance. And since the whole quarantine started, they've kind of scaled back on the recording side of things. They have, you know, a bunch of studios here in Hollywood, and they're not doing as much. So, you know, I work for all the different labels. So yeah, ideally, yeah, I am doing what I want to do, freelance mixer. I wouldn't, you know, I have my own little studio here in Hollywood, and it's great. I don't do any recording here, but yeah, eventually I'd like to maybe have a studio where, you know, a specific mix room and as well as a recording room. And yeah, I mean, I do have an assistant now, just because I've been so busy.
Hell yeah.
Recording all night long and then mixing all day long. So I need help to, like, you know, mix prep. But again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, the more you hear the song, the more involved you get with it. So, you know, if it takes me an hour or two to prep the mix, I've heard the song so many times at that point, so I lose my focus on it. So I hire somebody to kind of set it up the way I like. And yeah, you know, if it's a song that I recorded, you know, for a lot of the chopper stuff, it's a lot easier to set up. But I do get sessions from other artists that, you know, I've never, you know, have other engineers, and I've never seen the session before. And it just takes time to go through everything and organize it, get things color coded, you know, so that when I get to the mix, I can move as fast as possible. So yeah, having an assistant definitely helps. I don't have 5 assistants like other engineers, other mixers, which would be nice.
One for each color code.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
no,
it's like your story is really cool from like kind of like, because I know you kind of started as like an apprentice somewhere, like, or right? Or were you just kind of
came out here?
No, just like in general, like for what, like when you were getting started, like how did you end up getting into cyber sound? Like your dad was an engineer, right?
Yeah, my father's an engineer.
You kind of grew up around it, and awesome.
And yeah, how did I get to cyber sound? I think when I was like 18, I started working for this DJ company in Boston, and one of the other DJs worked there, and he's like, "Oh, you trying to be an engineer? Let me hook you up over there." And yeah, I started interning, and before I finished school, I, you know, started engineering there, and that just kind of took off. So yeah, it just kind of knowing people. I think that's the best thing, you know, to be successful in our industry is relationships.
Big time.
Like you can be the best person, the best engineer, the best artist, the best producer, the best whatever in the world, but if you don't know the right people, or know somebody that knows the right people, it kind of doesn't matter, you know. Like I was doing my thing in Boston, I had to come out to LA where I knew some people, but not nearly as much as I did in Boston, and that was why it was kind of a slow start. But as I started meeting people, you know, things started taking off. And I mean, actually, that's how I got my job at Atlantic. One of my old interns at Cyber Sound, I randomly ran into him out here in Hollywood, and exchanged numbers, never spoke again. One day he just randomly texted me. He's like, "You want a job at Atlantic?" Yes. And, you know, the rest is kind of history. So be
Right.
nice to your interns, be nice to your
Right.
runners.
Right. Well, and
Yeah, no,
that's a good situation for him because he probably looked good, right? He was like, oh, wait a minute, I might have an opportunity to look good to Atlantic because I can plug this guy in. He's like, shit, I know somebody who's really good who's out here. So that's
Yeah.
not exactly right. Well, I mean, it's really cool and to see like how far you've taken kind of just something you saw your dad doing and like you were just around and like then you're like, wait a minute, I kind of have my own business here. Now, was there a point where you were like, this is what I'm going to do? Or was it kind of just like you grew up watching your dad do it and you just never even thought about it? You kind of just did it.
Definitely wasn't trying to do what my father did.
So you were
I
a
mean,
reluctant audio engineer.
yeah. Well, as a kid, yeah, I wasn't planning on doing the same thing as him. I've been playing music since I was like 5 years old. I always wanted to do something in music, but I think, throughout high school and, just after high school, I was more wanted to be a producer. And then I don't know, I just got into the studio and just fell in love with playing with all the toys on my own, and it just kind of went that way. I do a lot different music than my father. He does more jazz and classical, that type of stuff. I do more hip hop, pop, R&B stuff, more mainstream stuff. So yeah, it's definitely wasn't trying to follow in his steps, but it just kind of happened that way. And that's cool. We get to talk shop a lot, and he's showed me things that he's learned over the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years engineering, and he hits me up sometimes and like, so Aaron, how do you use this auto-tune thing? It's like, yes, finally.
What is this Pro Tools?
Exactly.
Do they have amateur tools I can start with, or do I have to go pro?
Exactly. You gotta go pro, man.
You gotta go pro. And then they look it up, $300 or whatever. I don't even know how much it is now. What do you mean $300? $300 for Pro Tools.
Yeah,
That's pretty funny.
So, yeah, it's cool though.
I mean, I'm sticking with my guns. I think you're top 1% of what you do. So we'll leave you here with a nice softball question. Ready?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is it's almost Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear some of your best Halloween costumes, like ever, that you've already worn. Not that you have for this year, not an idea, something you've already done. I feel like you could put together a hell of a Conor McGregor costume for this year. If you're looking for an idea, you could do it. Get a bunch of fake tats, grow out the beard a little bit from here to Halloween. You got 2 weeks. You could do it.
Time, man. We can make it happen.
Do you have an Irish accent?
Years. Do I have it? Nah, I'm terrible with accents. You got it though. I know you got the
I bet if you give me from now to Halloween, I could put one together.
I think you could. Yeah. Man, I don't know. I haven't dressed up in years. I end up working most of the time, to be honest. I can't even remember the last time I dressed up for Halloween. I don't know. It's a whack answer, but
I thought Elliot was going to ask you if he was in your top 3 ever recorded.
Yeah. Okay, so but I do have a question though, because I bet there's one song you remember us recording because we were like, all right, man, so we're gonna try something new. We don't know how it's gonna go, but just bear with us and like let us. And we did this like this like wannabe like anthem like halftime show song. And do you remember? You've done hundreds of songs, and if you remember this, then that's.
I do. I can't remember the name of it, but I do remember. Yeah,
it was like really heavy drums, boom, boom, go, go, boom, boom, go, go, boom, boom, go, go, boom, boom. And then it was like, da, 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 da. And, oh man, it was really bad. But we were like, oh, dude, this could be like on Monday Night Countdown, like they could put this on ESPN or something, dude. I think it was called like halftime show or some shit. But like, so that just goes to show. And you don't remember it because it was an amazing song. You remember it because you're like, oh, what are these fucking guys doing?
As long as they pay me.
We had so
I'm
much fun in
getting.
the studio, though. Man. We always had a good time. So.
Oh, we always had so much fun. And the best part about working with you is like if we ever like brought somebody with us, or like if somebody else was at the studio, like if they were like talking or like fucking dicking around in the studio, you would always be like, hey, can you shut the fuck up? And then they were all like, oh, that's right. Like they take this shit serious. And I was like, good, I didn't need to say
work, man.
Yeah, right. I'm trying to fucking work. Take the goddamn conversation outside.
We got lounges for that.
Yeah, right. There's a couch out there if you want to gossip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still get that even out here, and people like to talk and bullshit. Sometimes I just throw headphones on at this point and say, "Fuck it, I'm not gonna yell at you anymore. I'm over it."
Right. It's like,
yeah,
if you want to pay me for 6 hours of time and you want to dick around for 2 of them, it's on you. I'm getting paid the same either way.
It's your money.
Right. Well, Aaron, man, it's been great to like reconnect and chat with you about engineering. And do you have like a website, or where should people reach out to you? Just on Instagram?
Yeah, on Instagram, Aaron Mattis Mixing, my Instagram, and I did set up a website. It's have to work on it a little bit. It's not great. I'm working on it, but
all right.
But yeah, same thing. AaronMattisMixing.com.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and the email AaronMattisMixing@gmail.com. So yeah, you can reach out to me for any of those spots, and yeah, I'd love to work with some of y'all.
Hell yeah. Well, he is my recommendation for an audio engineer. Aaron kills it. Dress up as Conor McGregor this year. I'll send you a thing of his whiskey. I've heard it's not that great, but I'll send you a fifth of it or something either way.
Dress up as when you work. Whole night accent, everything.
Yeah. Do the accent when I'm working by myself.
Do it.
Pro Tools and Irish, Craig McGraw, whatever his name is, accent.
Right. I think you've got some potential there, man.
I'll try. Let me practice. I got a couple of weeks, right?
You're right. You got 2 weeks.
All right.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, bro. Aaron Mattis Mixing on Instagram. Reach out to him if you're looking for one of the best engineers there are, whatever. But thank you so much for your time, man.
For sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. We'll talk again soon.
All right, for sure. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Take care.
Yeah.